Hello, I'm Jo. I'm a teacher at Twinkl. This is the second video in a series of 5 videos that are linked to texts related to the topic of ancient Egypt. In today's video, we'll look at chapter 2 of the Story of Osiris, and this is a retelling of an ancient Egyptian myth. During these videos, I ask some questions, and when I do this, it would be great if you could pause the video to give yourself time to write the answers down. You can write them on the activity sheet that comes with the pack. You could write it on a piece of paper. If you prefer, you can just think about the answers. In the last video, we read chapter 1 of this story. There's no need to write anything down, but pause the video for a moment and see what you can remember about what happened in chapter 1. Well, in chapter 1, we learnt that Ra, the ancient Egyptian god of all the other gods, made Osiris the first pharaoh of Egypt. Osiris and his wife Isis ruled very well and were popular with the people of Egypt. But Osiris's brother Seth was very jealous and plotted to bring about Osiris's downfall. In chapter 1, we read about how Seth snuck into Osiris's bedchamber while he was sleeping and measured him. He then had a beautiful gold chest made to fit his dimensions. And chapter 1 ended with a rather ominous line. Not there, that's the back page. Let's just flick through to the end of chapter 1, which was called A Horrid Plan. It ended with the line, "Who would be able to resist a chest of such beauty and opulence?" Seth sneered to himself. We'll read chapter 2 today, and we'll be working on a reading skill. And this skill is to ask your own questions about a text to help you make sense of what you've read. When you read a text and you ask questions, it really helps you to think things through, to make sense of things, to make links, to ponder on characters. And sometimes you'll ask a question about what you've read and you'll be able to find the answer for yourself almost straight away in the text. Sometimes you'll have to read on quite a bit before you come to that answer. In fact, sometimes you'll ask yourself a question about what you've read, and when you get to the end of the book, you might still not have the answer. But that's okay, because by asking that question, it showed that you're really thinking about what you've read and engaging with the text. I'll show you what I mean in a moment. Let's have a look at chapter 2. So chapter 2 is called Into the Nile. The next step in Seth's repulsive plan was to invite everyone, gods and humans, to a party. There was music, an abundance of delicious food, and the wine was free-flowing. Seth stopped the chatter by demanding everyone's attention, and he called for his slaves to carry in the valuable chest. There was a murmur of appreciation as the crowd admired the intricate designs on this piece of art and acknowledged how impressive the gold was. Everyone focused on Seth as he announced, "Whoever can fit inside this chest will get to keep it. It's a party game of sorts." I'll stop reading there just to show you what I mean about asking questions about what I've read. Now, if I ask the question, does Seth have a pet? Interesting as it is, it doesn't really link to the story, and it doesn't show that I've read something somewhere and it's got me thinking. So that wouldn't really be a question that would help you make sense of what you've read. However, if I said, why is the chapter called Into the Nile? Is the river involved? That shows that I'm looking ahead to what might happen and I'm thinking about the title of the chapter. I could also ask the question, why is Seth suddenly so confident at this party? Standing up and saying this in front of everyone and everyone's focused on him, when it said in the last chapter that he was a withdrawn god. So there are no real wrong answers when you ask your own questions about what you've read. Just have a think about things that you would really like to know, and you'll probably get the answers right. Let's read on. Gods and humans alike stepped forward from the crowd. They were all keen to win such a beautiful and intricate prize. Many humans tried and failed to fit inside, so the gods had their turn. Countless gods climbed into the chest and found it was too big or too small for them. Seth urged his brother to have a try. For a bit of fun, Osiris, you never know, the box could fit you. Isis stroked her husband's arm and laughed. It could well be the box for you. I'll stop reading there. For question 1, your task is to write your own question that you'd like to know the answer to help you make sense of the text from the bottom of page 4 where it says gods and humans through to that little bit I just read when Isis spoke, it could well be the box for you. Pause the video and write your question down. Well, as long as you've written something that fits in with what we've just read, you'll have got the answer right. But here are some example answers. Gods and humans are at this party. Do gods and humans live together in ancient Egyptian myths? Why did the humans go first? Why did Seth leave asking Osiris for quite a while? Was it Isis who convinced Osiris to have a turn? Could Isis possibly be in on the plot? Why did Isis laugh? Let's read on and see what happens next as Osiris is about to climb into the box. The people gathered and cheered as the pharaoh handed his distinctive snake-shaped crook to his wife, before giving a playful smile to the crowd and taking his turn. As Osiris climbed in, it became obvious that it was indeed the perfect fit, and the party guests clapped enthusiastically. It was at this moment that Seth seized the lid and, with his angry eyes glaring at the crowd, he pressed it onto the chest, making it into a coffin. Instantly, the room was filled with his slaves, and they helped him to move the chest out of the palace. The crowd stood aghast, many frozen to the spot with shock. Isis let her husband's crook fall to the ground with a clank. She chased bravely after the group, who were making with great speed to the banks of the Nile. There, Seth took over and tipped the chest into the water. However, it did not sink straight away. The current was strong, and the chest disappeared out of sight very quickly. Isis wanted to fall weeping to her knees or to beat Seth with her angry fists, but she knew her priority had to be to follow the current and find her husband. So, for question 2, it's the same question again. Write down your own question, or more than one question if you like, which helps you to make sense of the text from where it says the people gathered down to the bottom of the page. Pause the video and write your questions down. Again, no wrong answers, but here are some example answers. You might have said, why does he have a snake-shaped crook? Why does he give a playful smile to the audience? Is he showing that he's got a good sense of humour? Why did Isis drop the crook? Why was it that it was Seth himself who tipped the chest into the Nile? We'll read on. So it said that Isis decides it's her priority is to follow the current and find her husband. She set off down the river, her cheeks wet with tears, her elaborate makeup smeared on her face. Isis hunted around the banks of the Nile for weeks and weeks. The Egyptian people working on the river were honoured to meet her. But they had seen no sign of the chest she described. Wherever she could, Isis begged locals to dive into the Nile to search for the lost trunk. But all were unsuccessful, and she knew it was impossible for her to search every inch of the riverbed. As time passed, Isis found the search more difficult. On top of such long days searching, the queen was pregnant with her first child, and by the end of each day's hunting, she felt utterly exhausted. For question 3, can you use your skills again to ask a question, or more if you'd like to, about this section of text from the top of page 6 down to the word exhausted? Pause the video and write down your question. Here are some example answers. Did Isis always wear elaborate makeup, or did she have makeup on because there was a party? Why did she have to beg all the local people to look in the river for her, as I thought they'd be falling over themselves to do it, being as they loved her so much? What did the people that she met say to her? Will she give up soon? How long before her baby is born? Where is she sleeping every night? And how is Isis feeling at this point in the story? Lots of ideas that you could have had. Let's read on. Meanwhile, back at the palace, Seth had established himself as the new pharaoh. The Egyptian people hated their new leader, and word of Osiris's murder spread. However, the people dared not rise up against Seth. Unlike Osiris, he was a ruthless leader, and he did not care about the happiness and well-being of his people. Punishments ordered by Seth were gruesome and unjust. The mighty Ra was filled with anger when he heard what had happened, and he ordered for Seth to come to him. Seth refused. Well, that's the end of chapter 2. I hope you enjoyed it. If you'd like to answer some more questions about chapter 2, there are some more questions to answer that come in the pack that accompanies this video, and there's another activity to do about chapter 2. Join me next time when we'll be reading chapter 3. Goodbye.